this video, we will demonstrate the integration between Collibra and SecuPi, an integrated data platform for governance, privacy, security, and IRR management. We will see here how, based on the scanning and governance of Collibra, SecuPi can get these scanning results and automatically, on top of that, can apply remediation, privacy, and governance. So let's start with the demo. For that, I'm going to have three main platforms that I'm going to use. First one, my consumption point will be Snowflake Web Tools. Second one will be SecuPi Management Server. This is the application where we will configure all the policies for the remediation and the governance. And thirdly will be the Collibra's instance. Here we will see all the scanning results from Collibra that will be automatically imported into SecuPi. Now let's start. So I'm in Snowflake Web Tools. As you can see here in the URL, this is not snowflakecomputing.com. This is the SecuPi gateway. And we have this gateway in order to apply all the protection that we will configure with the server. Because this gateway will get automatically all the policy. The server will propagate it to the gateway and for all the enforcement point of SecuPi. Now I will query some stuff and we will see on the fly how things are changing based on the policies from SecuPi. The first one I will execute is select star from customer data. We can see here that we have 10 rows and we can see that all the data at rest is in the clear, even the sensitive data such as city, country, and so on. And as we can see, we have customers from all over the world. When I will execute this query, select star from the same table, but now I'm going to look for a specific record based on this email, the Dino email, we will see that we received a record because this record exists in the database. So we don't have any policies that are enabled within SecuPi. Now let's see how we can bring all the scanning results from Collibra into SecuPi. So Collibra run on your database. In that use case, we run on the customer data table. As we can see, under our business analyst community, Collibra found some results based on that table. And we can see that, for example, for the customer city column, what Collibra found is several parameters. For every sensitive column that should get protection, Collibra put the relevant sensitivity for this column, the classification, here we can see it's geographic and personal, and the data format. How exactly we should protect this column on the fly. It also has the tag SecuPi. This is our indicator which columns to bring into SecuPi. Now let's see how we are doing it based on an API integration. So in the SecuPi Management Server user interface, I'm going to go into my application for that specific demonstration where I'm going to configure all my policies. Under my config tab, I'm going to go to my resource access. Here we are defining all the data mapping flow. For every sensitive column, what should be the protection? As you can see here, every column will retrieve sensitivity, data format, and classification. The same structure from Collibra. Now I don't have here anything, but once I will connect by a REST API to my Collibra's instance, we will see that we will retrieve all the results from Collibra. So let's see how we are doing it. I'm going to go to my Integrate tab and I'm going to choose Data Catalog. Here I'm going to fill in all the relevant data in order to connect my Collibra's instance. So the first one will be the server URL, which is just the URL of my Collibra's instance, which is that. And then what I need to put is my credentials, my username and my password. Let's do test. We are connected. Let's save this connection. Now I will need to choose from which community and what will be the base of my tags that I would like to bring. So I'm going to choose the business analyst community, as you saw earlier with Collibra. And I'm going to also choose the SecuPi tag, because I would like to bring only the results that has the SecuPi tags. I'm going to save it. Now I have two options. Either I can schedule a time to bring those results automatically every time that Collibra will find a new discovery based on scanning the database. We will bring it automatic to SecuPi, or I can import what we have now. And this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to press on import now, and this will initiate a process of the import. Here we will get all the results from Collibra. So now when I will go back to my config and my resource access, when I will refresh this page, we will see that all the results from Collibra has been retrieved. All the scanning results that Collibra found on the same customer data table has been retrieved here. And as you can see, for every sensitive column, we retrieved the sensitivity, the data format, and the classification. Therefore, now when I will consume the data from Snowflake, we will see that SecuPi will apply protection based on the same recommendation from Collibra. So how we are doing it? In our config, we have 4 main steps that we can apply our policies. We will be focused mainly on the data request piece. Here I pre-configured some policies, and one of them is active resource access. In this policy, the meaning is if you have any definition for the data mapping flow under the resource access, apply what's in there. And because we retrieved all the scanning results from Collibra, we do have some configuration. So now when I will go back to my Snowflake Web Tools and I will execute the same select star from customer data table, we will see that SecuPi applied the protection on the fly. We still retrieved the 10 rows, but look at that. Now, for every sensitive column, SecuPi applied protection. We have some encryption on the city and on the country. We have masking on the industry. Those are all the recommendations from the Collibra scanning results. And now, when I will execute the query to search for this specific record, I will see that although this record exists, I'm not able to see that because I'm an analyst and I'm an unauthorized user. That was how SecuPi applied remediation on the column level on the fly. Now let's see how, based on the same policy engine, we can apply our right of erasure, which is known as right to be forgotten. I'm going to go to my SecuPi Management Server user interface, and here I pre-configure another policy called right of erasure. All I'm going to do is to enable this policy and to save it. The save button will initiate a propagation process to all the enforcement point of SecuPi. The same is the gateway. So now, when I will execute the same select star from customer data table, we will see that on the fly, all those customers that ask to be forgotten based on the regulation, those are masked. We can see row number 1, row number 6, and so on. This is a soft deletion that SecuPi applied for row level security, because we would like to keep our customers' data still at the database until retention time. Then SecuPi can initiate a process for hard deletion. Both are compliant with the regulation, and as a company, you can decide what works the best for you. After we saw right of erasure, let's see another policy for ABAC, Attribute-Based Access Control. And now this is going to be based on geofencing capability. So I'm going to go back to my SecuPi Management Server. Here I pre-configured a policy called ABAC, geofencing. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to enable this policy as I did before, and I'm going to save this policy now. Again, propagation process will start. And now, when I will execute the same customer data table, I'm going to retrieve only 3 rows. Why is that? This is because my user that is logged into Snowflake Web Tool is located in Italy. And based on geofencing capability, I'm not allowed to see all the records. I'm allowed to see only the records that are the same geographical location as me. And this is why we retrieved only 3 rows, although there are 10 rows that exist in this table. And this is an attribute-based access control. In this scenario is location. Now, we saw remediation, we saw some governance. Let's see the SecuPi database activity and monitoring to see exactly what happened and understand all our analytics internally. So SecuPi, because we are sitting on top of the application, or in this scenario is a gateway, we are between the user to the database. This is why we can audit and monitor all the activity. So we can say that under our dashboards, we have here some real-time activity and monitoring. Every request will add it here to the real-time activity and monitoring, as well as to the request log. And as we can see here, we had in the last few minutes several requests from my Collibra user. If I'm gonna dive into one of the requests, I can see everything that happened. This is a full forensics capability. I can get the username, the IP, the role, the time that the query was taking and the exact query, the sensitivity and the classification on that request. Those are the same parameters that you saw in the resource access, the same parameters that has been retrieved from Collibra. And we can see here exactly how SecuPi applied the protection. So to rewrite the result set, we can see that SecuPi applied some protection. On some columns, we applied remediation. So for example, on customer ID, we used generic FPE function. And for some columns, we used some masking for write-off erasure. Those are the remediation that we applied based on the scanning results from Collibra. And for attribute-based access control, for our geofencing, we can see that instead of query select star from customer data table, we executed a completely different query. We used the with statement and we retrieved the location of the user, which is Italy. And this is the query that we executed into Snowflake. This is an even more efficient way to run a query based on our location. So, as you understand, we didn't change any data at the database. We just protected the data on the fly for the user based on the user authorization. And because in this scenario, this is an analyst, this user is unauthorized. So this user is not allowed to see sensitive data at rest in the clear. We can see also that this transaction received this risk scoring, which is 143. This risk scoring is calculated by SecuPi based on the classification, the sensitivity, and the number of the rows. This is how we can understand if there is any suspicious activity and to prevent all the access to the data from all those high privileged users that can do everything that they want. So who can avoid them of stealing the data or to run any suspicious queries? With SecuPi, you can definitely do that. So even in the config, we can even apply a policy, configure here a policy to block a request with a high sensitivity risk scoring. Or even here, we can create some alerts. As you can see here, for example, I created one. And in case you're going to land in that range, an alert can pop up inside SecuPi in our analytical alerts. And as you can see, 7 minutes ago, I had an alert about my Collibra user because my risk score was between 100 to 1000. Those alerts can also pop outside of SecuPi. So those are all the tools that will help you to understand all the malicious activity that can happen internally. And it's not just about the database activity and monitoring, By having all those analytics, SecuPi can even provide you some user behavior analytics to even understand more deep understanding on the user's patterns. In case you will find any malicious activity, let's say that I would like to investigate more about this Collibra user. I can go to my user's dashboard here to get into the card of the user and to see based on time, and let's say in the last 30 days, I can see here analytics about my user. I can choose, for example, the hour resolution, and I can see how this specific user, the blue line, using the system compared to the peers. My x is going to be the time, my y-axis is going to be the risk scoring, the same risk scoring that you saw earlier. This is how we can understand patterns about the user. And of course that as long as we will use the data more, the curve will adjust because we will collect more and more data. There are some additional dashboards here that we can configure. Here, for example, you can see that this is the user compared to the medium based on the classification or based on the data access. Those dashboards are configurable based on the customer request. And we can see all the requests of this user in this 30 days period. No matter if this user today logged from Snowflake Web Tool and yesterday it logged from Tableau. No matter if today the user tried to touch the data at Snowflake and yesterday the user tried to touch Oracle. Everything will be audited and monitored in one centralized location. Which brings me to the summary of this demonstration. So we saw how, based on the governance that Collibra found, the scanning, they were automatically, by a REST API, transferred to the SecuPi. And then, on top of that, SecuPi applied the remediation for the column level based on your user authorization. Then we applied some governance tools. We saw based on our policies how we applied right of erasure, how we applied geofencing with ABAC. Of course that this attribute in this scenario was location, but it can be any attribute from any source. SecuPi is integrated with Okta, Active Directory. We can call this parameter from any REST API integration from any source. And we saw also how, based on our auditing and monitoring, we can provide those insights about the organization and to help organization to protect about themselves. One of the biggest challenges that are there in the market. And as I mentioned earlier, everything is managed by a centralized, policy-driven solution. And this is the SecuPi management server. You just need only one SecuPi management server in order to apply those protections, to get the privacy and the governance, everything in one package. Feel free to stay in touch and send me some questions if you have, and I hope you enjoyed and learned from the demo.